So yes, special happiness um, coming to you from the land of Israel. I am pleased to bring you this Bitcoin and crypto market updates and how it might affect you in the general, broader sense, and also to remind you of certain things about the lower time frames. So let's get started, shall we? In the broader sense, there's actually quite a lot happening. Uh, and I don't mean around me, although that too. But um, the Bitcoin market and the crypto market are going through a very tumultuous time, volatile time. And of course, as low time frame traders of volatility, that's what we love. Right? We like the volatility. It's good. Now I understand that most people don't like it because most people aren't volatility traders, obviously, and what they want is some kind of stability. Well, them that controls the market, they got other plans. Like they want to take it all. This is the gold rush. And if you think it's going to be a smooth ride during the gold rush, I guess you've never been gold mining um, during a gold rush. It is a wild and crazy time. And if you go for it, you will see that there's a lot of volatility. It doesn't matter what the actual gold is. If we're talking about real gold, like in the late 1840s in California, right during the gold rush, so to speak, of 1849 and so forth. If we're talking about Bitcoin, if you're talking about AI, it doesn't really matter what the gold is, right? The precious asset that people are scrambling to control as much as they can of in as short of a time as they can, because they realize that once the rush is over, there's going to be a long time with no rush. And people just have it and hold it and wait for it to inevitably get up to an area of value where they might occasionally slice off a tiny little piece just to cash it in and hold that as their living money while the asset keeps growing over time. They're already doing that. Hello, I see you. Hi. Hello to you. Said hi. Hi. Uh, Latoya White. Hello, Latoya White. So Bitcoin is obviously very scarce. And the crypto market is going through a lot of volatility and all of crypto is really very scarce. Yes, I know you can tell me there's tons of shitcoins that have that have literally infinite supply. They have no market cap supply or no supply cap. But overall, they're still relatively scarce in that not a lot of people are using them. And the ones that are just like meme tokens or whatever that are just ridiculous meme tokens with no supply cap and low liquidity, those things, even if they have quote unquote infinite supply, if no one's buying them and if no one's holding them, they don't exactly have infinite distribution, do they? But there's a lot of things happening with crypto now that are connected to politics directly. For example, the president of the United States obviously has his own Trump coin, and there's like a gazillion other knockoffs of it, and other members of his family have coins. Like his wife has a coin, Melania. I forget, is it called Melania coin? I don't remember, but and his son Barron, I think, has a coin, and who knows, however many of his other children or grandchildren have coins of their own, right? And then seriously, they have actual like Trump family crypto coins and other coins that they've started or been involved with. right? Or directly tied to and promoting and all these other things. World Liberty or something like that. And then they'll have a stable coin for that in theory. Well, what does that do to the market? Well, it drives a lot of interest into the market. Okay. Does it move the price necessarily one way or the other? No. What moves the price is the volatility, the entropy, the probabilities, and the statistics, the VEPs, right? But of course, you need to bring eyes to the market. Well, what better way to bring eyes to a market than to have a very temperamental president? Love him or hate him, he's temperamental, right? He does things sort of, he shoots from the hip, right? No great strategic long-term thinking is at play here, and I think he would be the first to admit that. Like he's very, you know, he's like a sales. He's like a car salesman or an apartment, a real estate salesman. Like he flows with the vibe of his own, maybe of his own echo chamber or whatever. But he flows with his own vibe. He doesn't. He's not thinking like 20 years, 30 years out. Right? That's not his mojo. That might be his goal, but the way he gets it, his tactic is by being much more short term and transactional, right? And again, I'm not going to speak for his goals or ambitions or anything like that. I don't know. But operationally, as an operator, you should be able to recognize the way he operates. Anybody who's willing to say, tariffs are on, tariffs are off, tariffs are on, tariffs are off, like, more often than a street light blinks in a day, is clearly not doing long-term strategic moves, right? He's doing things to get a reaction, get the feedback from the reaction, and then doing the next thing to counter that, right? And you can say, well, if you like him or not, it doesn't matter. He's doing it on purpose, or he's not doing it on purpose. He doesn't know what he's doing, or you can say, oh, he's just fixing his own problems he's creating. You can say he's playing 4D chess and he's doing all these. I don't know. I don't care. Maybe I do know. I don't care. Okay. What I can say is he has a massive influence on certain things being president. One of those things is perceptions of the market and the US dollar specifically. Right now, we know, I've said it a gazillion times, no president, I don't care which president it is, left, right, or center, they do not make or break the economy. Right? They always get too much credit when things go right, and they always get too much blame when things go wrong. It's never about just the one person. Even you want to say to me, oh, he created tariffs and then the market crashed. And then as soon as you turn them off, the market's pumped again. That tells me you don't understand how the markets work. Because yes, you can tell, well, there's market sentiment. Sure, yeah, there's people have sentiment. Sentiment is a lagging indicator. So anybody buying or selling based on sentiment, they're buying or selling based on what they saw already happened in the market that the bots were doing. Okay, if he had announced tariffs and the volatility was set to take things to the upside when he did, and then he did that, and then the things went to the, what do you think the narrative would have been? Wow, Trump's tariffs are amazing. Well, how come nobody thought of doing this sooner? That would have been the narrative. Okay. And then if he shut them off for whatever reason, if it had gone well, I don't think he would have, but if they, if he'd shut them off and then the markets reversed course and went down, they'd have been like, oh my God, you see, turning off the tariffs was a disaster. You got to turn them back on quickly. And then if you turned them back on again, the markets went back up. See, it's the narrative. It's a lagging indicator. It's a response to the actual markets, right? Sentiment is a response, and therefore it's a lagging indicator. Therefore, it's not worth using. Right. In any case, what he can affect is the perception, right, of the value of the markets and the dollar in particular, and of course, Bitcoin and other cryptos. And why is that important? Well, it's important because he's the first president not only to outright endorse Bitcoin, even before he was president, like the second time, because remember, the first time he was president, he was dead set against it. And the crypto bros went to Mar-a-Lago and gave him a bunch of money, and suddenly he's for it, right? And that's fine. Again, I don't question in politics. I don't question the politicians' ambitions, right, or motives, because there's no point. Not in American politics, anyway, or any really. Um, just question the facts, question the acts. Don't question motives or ambitions because they could be lying to you. Doesn't matter what they tell you. They could always have ulterior motives, right? Always. So the president can affect the perception of the market. The president can affect the perception of the US dollar. The president can affect the perception of the value of Bitcoin or a shitcoin or whatever else he happens to be hawking that day. Right? How do we know that? Well, look at what happened on Inauguration Day. Look at what happened to this coin. Right? Also, look at the influence that he can peddle with it. Right now, right? People who are the top Trump coin holders apparently can qualify to a private dinner with the president at the White House or something like that, or Mar-a-Lago, one of those places. And then the top of the top, like the top 0.001%, whatever might be the top 20 or so holders, get to meet with the president in a pre-dinner kind of reception at the White House, where they get to hear the president talk about crypto, where I'm sure they'll have no undue influence on his opinion about anything. No, not at all. The people who bought his coin like the top holders have millions of dollars worth of his coin. You don't think that's going to have any influence on them? Of course not. No. Why would a man of such high ethics and morals ever be influenced by something like people buying millions of dollars of his coin? I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? Even if you love the guy, at least own the fact that he's transactional. Okay, ain't no shame in that, but at least own it because he is transactional. You can say a lot about the guy, but don't tell me he's not transactional. Right? He would even say that because he is. I mean, he's literally a real estate guy. It doesn't get much more transactional than that. So again, Bitcoin is very scarce. Altcoins, frankly, the real decentralized ones, are very scarce. You know, like I keep telling you, Litecoin. There's only 4 times as many Litecoins as there are Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin is extremely scarce, and there's only 4 times as much Litecoin as there is Bitcoin. That means Litecoin is very scarce too. And Litecoin is also more than 1,000 times cheaper than Bitcoin right now. At least it was the last I looked at it. You can get more than 1,000 Litecoins for 1 Bitcoin. And there's only 4 times as many Litecoins as Bitcoin. And it has all the same technology. And in fact, it has it first. Like that's where they test a lot of things. That's where they test things for the Bitcoin technology protocol. They test them on Litecoin first. Litecoin was built for that. That's why it exists. Does it do other things? Is it capable of doing things that have not been implemented on Bitcoin yet? It's capable, sure. Just like Bitcoin is capable of doing things that haven't been done on Litecoin yet. But it just so happens that whatever happens on Bitcoin has been tested on Litecoin first in terms of like major upgrades or anything like that. Why? Well, because, right? Because that's why. Because it was built to be, if you will, Bitcoin's little brother, right? Or the silver to Bitcoin's gold, if you will. But it's very rare. Not a lot of it. And yet it's than 1,000th of the price. In theory, it should be about 25% of the price if all things were equal. Has the same technology, same distribution, right? It's mined by pretty much the same network. It's held by pretty much the same, like the miners are, that hold it, pretty much the same. Of course, they sell at different rates. Of course, they distribute at different rates, but and to different people and all that, different buyers. But more importantly, currently it is still held, not as much as it was, but still held mostly by retail traders. Now, I've been telling you guys for a long time that whales, institutional investors, are getting into Litecoin, and that they're going to gobble up as much of it as possible ASAP. And we've been seeing that happening over the past year. We've been seeing more and more Litecoin get purchased by big crypto holders, right? Institutions wanting to get into the space, and folks who realize, like institutions who realize, the Litecoin ETF is probably going to happen, right? And you got the 5 cryptos that have been named that are in the central reserve or the digital reserve. And you got Bitcoin, obviously, it has its own reserve, Bitcoin National Reserve. And then you got the digital reserve, which is 4 other cryptos so far. And it makes room also for AI and other digital technologies that the government wants to hold. So that includes all kinds of goodies. But the 4 coins are Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano. Now, you might say, so, well, Litecoin's so great, why didn't they include Litecoin? That's a very good question. Why didn't they include Litecoin? Why do you think they didn't include Litecoin in the digital reserve? The answer why they didn't include Litecoin in the reserve is because the money that spoke did not trigger the presidents to buy Litecoin. They triggered them to focus on the biggest ones near the top of the heap. Right? They triggered them to specifically endorse Ethereum, which is the number 2 in terms of market cap. They triggered him to support XRP, which is right up there behind Ethereum, right? In terms of market cap, they also have, again remember, XRP and Ethereum have amazing relationships with huge corporations. In the case of Ethereum, it's all central governments and central banks and huge tech companies and other huge companies. In the case of XRP, it's mostly banks and central banks and like the World Bank and stuff, but it's mostly central banks and banks, right? So Ethereum companies love it. Banks also, but companies love it. And XRP, banks love it primarily. Solana, well, because if you're Trump and you're shilling meme coins, why wouldn't you want Solana to be one of the top things that the Central Reserve holds? I'm not saying Solana is a bad project. No, it's fantastic. It's great. It's not a true crypto in the sense that it's not decentralized, but it's great. And then Cardano. Well, Cardano is a real decentralized cryptocurrency. So why not? Yes, it's not one of the very, very top, at the top of the heap, but it is considered by many to have probably the best technology of the true decentralized currencies in terms of a long-term project. Okay. Does that mean that it has better technology than Bitcoin overall. Well, it depends on what you mean by better technology. Is it possible that Cardano is better for some applications than Bitcoin? Yeah, it's entirely possible you can make that case, because it does have certain things about it that you can say are better. Has it been around as long as Bitcoin? No, it hasn't. Is it ever going to be around as long as Bitcoin? Well, if Bitcoin suddenly stops operating, then in theory it could become as old as Bitcoin if Cardano keeps operating. But do you see any signs of Bitcoin stopping to operate anytime soon? Because I sure don't. What I see are signs that Bitcoin is growing in adoption significantly. Every day we see more and more big buyers buying more of it. We see more and more whales and banks and governments buying what little of it there is left. And we see all that happening. And yet, naysayers will tell you, "Oh, Bitcoin is just a Ponzi scheme or whatever." If you're still talking like that in 2025, I mean, honestly, you should be embarrassed about how stuck in 2017 you are. You really should. Like, get over the fact that you lost in the who gets to be a Bitcoin billionaire game. Just get over it. You didn't buy Bitcoin in 2009 or 2010 or 2011 when it was basically dirt cheap. You didn't buy it. You had the opportunity. You didn't do it. Oh, but I didn't know about Bitcoin. Well, if you didn't know about Bitcoin in 2010 and 2011, and you came to the game after 2012, 13, or 14, when it was already hundreds of dollars a coin, you should have done some learning. You shouldn't be assuming that it's garbage just because you came to the game late. And because you read in the media or your friend had money stolen from him or whatever. Plenty of people, I can tell you, who are Bitcoin OGs from the earliest days have had crypto money stolen from them. Plenty of people. That doesn't mean that they don't believe in crypto. That doesn't mean that they believe crypto is a scam. That just means that they got ripped off. And by that same token, no pun intended, people who are new to crypto and who bother to learn about crypto also know that it's not a scam. At least Bitcoin and Litecoin and certain other projects, right? Now, I say all the time that Ethereum is a scam. What I mean by that is fees.
Learning about cryptocurrency in 2025 can be a worthwhile endeavor for several.
The gas fees are pretty scammy. Now, you can say, "Well, this is not a scam. That's just how Ethereum's protocol operates." No. That was programmed in, like all things are programmed in to all programs, to all protocols. That was built in. That was done on purpose. It was done to incentivize miners and holders. And that is scammy because it means that the people that have the most are incentivized, and the people who have the least are not, and they suffer the consequence of the people that have the most having the most, not legitimately, just because they're mining and therefore they get extra Ethereum for no particular thing that they're doing. Now you could say, well, the mining effort and all that. You can have mining fees that are less ridiculous. You can have mining transaction fees that are less ridiculous than you have on Ethereum. But on Ethereum, you have ridiculous fees. Like, if I want to send a $10 ordinal for example, $100 order, okay, on Bitcoin from my account to someone else's. The transaction fee shouldn't be multiple times the price of the actual thing. But on Ethereum, that happens a lot. Like frequently, you will pay, let's say you have a $50 thing you want to send to somebody. It's not unusual to pay more than $100 to send a thing whose street value is $50. So now you're suddenly paying $150 to send a thing that costs $50 to buy. Why would you do that? Right, that's mental. But people do it. Now you got to ask yourself, well, who does that? Well, the people with ginormous Ethereum bags do that, who don't care about the gas fee, who aren't sending a $100 item. The people who are sending multi-million-dollar items, and they don't care if they pay $50 or $150. But it's still a scam because the fee should be cheaper, especially if you want this thing to be used by retail people. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for now. I didn't mean this to just be a video where I rant on Ethereum in the end. But right now, the market is looking very much like crypto can go one of two ways, right? Like if this trade war stuff is perceived to come to an end and people suddenly give the credit of that to the president, which they will. The narrative, I'm talking about the narrative. The narrative will be, Trump ends this trade war, everything's back on, the market's golden. But that will be for the traditional markets. But will that be good for crypto? Isn't it actually better for crypto if crypto decouples from the traditional market and goes on a quote-unquote bull run while the traditional market gets crushed? That would be good for crypto. Wouldn't be necessarily good for the economy or other assets, but that's the whole point of having an asset that can hedge your bets, so to speak. Right? That can limit your losses when times are tough. That's literally the point. Why do people buy gold? They always tell you, gold is great for when the market's going south. You want to hold some gold. Why? Well, because when the market goes south, what? Store of value. But when the market goes south, gold also goes south. Hate to break it to you folks. Oh, but it doesn't lose as much. Oh, I see. So you want to lose money just a little less than everyone else. That's not a way to make money. The last time I checked, losing money is not a way to make money. And I know investment managers will say, well, that's what risk management is all about. No, that's not what risk management is all about. Well, that's what hedging is. No. That's what bad hedging is. Proper investments make money. Proper portfolios make money regardless of whether or not the assets and the market generally are going up or down. Anyway, folks, that is going to do it for now. I will talk with you guys later. Have a great day. If you want to learn about trading properly and not just interpreting narrative, which is a silly waste of time, make sure you go to the Alpha Trading Discord. That's at alphatradinghq.com/Discord. We do live streams starting at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And well, that's it. They are Monday through Saturday starting at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So you can also get free indicators and all that stuff, free education, all in the Discord. So see you guys in there. And that's it. Happy birthday.